so loud last night. Joe has a really quiet voice, so when he's loud, I find it quite strange. Great. Well, it's great to be here. I'm just getting myself sorted. You understand that I usually travel with a massive handbag, so I need a whole lot of stuff, so I bring everything up ready. I was thinking this morning, what do you need to know about me? What would be helpful before I share? Because, you know, you're putting your trust and your time into what I've got to say this morning. And I just thought of a few things that might be helpful. I did not grow up in a Christian home. I'm not from a Christian family. I met Jesus roller skating when I was 17. I started roller skating. Anyone else into roller skating? Yeah, thank you. Cool people here. I was roller skating and I started dating a guy who then tells me that he is a Christian and he wanted to go back to church. So I went to church with him and I heard the gospel. I walked in and I went, what is this Jesus? I'd never heard of Jesus. We think we live in a Christian country, but I'm telling you we don't. I'd never heard of Jesus in my life. And I walked in and I heard the gospel and I actually, within not a very long time, said to the pastor, can you do that thing where you say something and then I come up and ask Jesus into my heart? Because you didn't do it today and I need to ask Jesus into my heart. So that's my story. At 17, I got saved, became a youth leader, because that's what you do. And just have served Jesus ever since. And as Joe mentioned yesterday, I met Joe I brought my youth group over for a camp conference. It was fun. And we met. He was there. I heard him preach and went, wow, I didn't know people could preach like that at like 22. It was amazing. So, and he could play guitar and he had nice curly hair. It was good. Played soccer. Yeah, there's not many of those pictures around. We didn't have many photos, did we, in the early 90s? So that's my story. So we've been married a long time. We have 2 adult kids, a grandbaby. Being a grandma is so much better than being a parent. Who's a like, come on. You've got money, you've got time, you send them home, buy what I want. She can, you know, it's so great. So yeah, I'm enjoying this stage of having kids out of home, and it's good. All right, so I'm going to share with you a message that I prepared for you and actually prepared for my church, and I preached this at my church last week, so if you happen to watch online, then you've already seen it. But it's for you guys as well. I've been on my own journey, and I think it's really important as pastors that we are very honest. And we are very honest, and, you know, we want to share from our own experience. And this is a very fresh experience for me. So here we go. I'm going to talk to you today about fame. I'm very fascinated about fame. Anyone else watch this show? Was Fame? It was, 1982 to 87, and it was about a group of... I didn't even know this was a thing. I'm just, you know, real Aussie and didn't know that you could actually go somewhere and study and, you know, just watching what Emily did and be musical. And they went to this special school for talent, and they were singers and musicians and composers and all kinds of things. And they actually, you know, it was the weekly story of their challenges and what they were going through. I just found that really interesting. Did anyone else watch that show? Some people my age or slightly older, maybe. Awesome. I don't care. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. I think the irony of this show is, I did a bit of research. The irony of this show is no one in that show is famous beyond that show, other than the person that was already famous when she was in that show, which says a lot about reality TV, doesn't it? No one stays famous for very long. I think our need for fame and our interest in fame has just been around for a really, really long time. I find it really interesting. I think, you know, I have a 13-year-old niece. She's my social experiment. So I think it's very interesting that we think we're more obsessed with fame than ever, but I actually just think fame is easier to find than ever, because all you need is an iPhone and a quirky idea. Case in point... Does anyone know who this is? I'm not cool enough to know who this is. I looked this up. Joe helped me with this. Who knows who this is? Yes, okay, all right. One person at Hope Central, Elizabeth, knew who that was. This is Jimmy Donaldson. He is named as the Beast, and he is worth $24 million, and that's how many subscribers he has on YouTube. Can you believe it? Who doesn't know? Who would like to guess what he actually is famous for? This is the bit that got me. Anyone? Anyone? You're right. Yeah, he does silly things like this. I watched the video of this. It was 20 minutes of my life that I no longer have. And what he did was, it's in America, and he, obviously it rains a lot where it was, because he got this, it wasn't his backyard. He got a backyard and it was lined with a tarp, and he got these things called Orbeez, which they actually buy them in Big W. I saw them the other day when we were looking in there. You actually, when they get wet, they go to like 1,000 times their size. So he filled this yard, which was like a low-level thing, of 100 million Orbeez, and it rained for 10 hours, and this is what the yard looked like. It wasn't his yard. I don't know whose yard it was. I was thinking, whose yard is that? That's what he's famous for. It's so curious, isn't it? You can be famous for the strangest things. Or how about this person here? Who knows who he is? Ryan's World. He is the #1 earner on YouTube last year. He is 9 years old. He is American. He made $43 million last year. What? What is happening? How is this fame? I just thought, what am I doing with my granddaughter? I could be making a fortune. Charlotte was looking at me like, no, you can't. No, I'm not really. But it's such a curious time we live in, isn't it? That fame is something that can be quite easily achieved. And I think we're a little bit, it's a little bit of a daunting thing, isn't it? It's a little bit tricky. There's lots of people that are famous, and the people that I admire, you may not be interested in at all. I love fashion and design, so I love looking at designers and models and all kinds of people, but I also love architecture. Is anyone else an architecture fan? My husband is. Good. Oh, you are as well. So do you know who this man is? Cool. So this guy, just have a think about what year he was born. 1867, right? And he passed away in 1959. You may not know who he is, but you may have seen one of his houses. So think about what year he was born to be that much of a visionary of that house. Or how about this one? Has anyone seen that house? Yeah. So, like, it's just incredible, isn't it, that some people are famous for doing amazing things. Some people clearly are famous for doing quite crazy things. But I do think it's really curious as to why are we so obsessed with fame? It does seem like we really are. Why do famous people get so much attention? They certainly do. I just want to read this quote. It's actually from a book I've just been reading, and I'm still reading actually, and it's a guy called Ernest Becker writes this quote: "We have a universal human need for heroic figures. We assume God has smiled on them, granting them special gifts, intelligence and wisdom. They appear to have triumphed over hardship." I think there's something about looking at famous people, there's something about the escapism of something glamorous or beautiful or something you admire, or a talent or a discipline. I think that's great. But I think there's something that's not quite right in where we are as a society around famous people, and I think it's quite concerning. Just want to read to you this scripture. It's from Romans 1. "For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse. For even though they knew God, they did not honour him as God or give thanks, but they became futile in their speculations, and their foolish hearts were darkened." Professing to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the incorruptible God for an image in the form of corruptible man, and of birds, and of four-footed animals, and of crawling creatures. You know, it's funny, we think that the world may be going crazy, but it seems like maybe it already was. Yeah? I think we all need to ask ourselves these questions. If I go back to that scripture, it talks about his invisible attributes, his eternal power and his divine nature have been clearly seen. But I think what's happening in our obsession with fame and looking at the world around us is we're getting distracted, really distracted. Like, I don't even know what this is. I do mock the Kardashians a bit, but I've got to say that there is this perfect image of person that is so distorting what we think is normal and healthy, particularly our young people. We are so distracted by a particular image, and it's just exhausting for our kids. So we need to be mindful of what they're watching and who they're admiring. So my question for us today is this us? You may not care about the Kardashians. I do not care about the Kardashians. But I think we are all distracted to the point of missing what the invisible God is showing us. We're distracted, aren't we? We're working too hard. We're exhausted. We really are. So what are we exchanging is our question for today. What are we missing out on in our quest to be whatever it is that we are? And what are we losing in the trade? What is it that we somehow are missing out on because we're trying to maybe have the house we want to have, or the car, or the family life, or whatever? What are we missing out on? Romans 1:28-31 says, "And just as they did not see fit to acknowledge God any longer, God gave them over to a depraved mind to do those things which are not proper, being filled with all unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, evil, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, arrogant, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents." What? Terrible. Without understanding, untrustworthy, unloving, and unmerciful. Just because all of those terrible things, just because they did not see fit to acknowledge God. Wow, that kind of smacks you, doesn't it? Jeepers. Did not see fit to acknowledge God, and this is what happens. The admiration of others is a very slippery slope. Really can be, can't it? I do want to say this though, you know, whether then you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. It is not bad to do a great job of something, to try and be a fantastic person, be a great parent, be a great grandparent, whatever, but it's really important that whatever we do it through the lens of giving Christ the glory. He needs our glory, absolutely. So what is the truth about God? Jesus said to him, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me." We all know we can't earn our salvation from someone else, but I really think that we need to be reminded of this verse today. No one comes. Doesn't matter if you have the best visiting speaker, worship pastor, whatever, they only come through Christ. So if that person is not presenting Christ, it's just entertainment. Yeah. So I want to encourage us today to remember, do not exchange the glory of God for the glory of any other person. Any other person. You may not know this person, but some people in this room do. This is Harry Styles. He is a creative genius who I love. I know you might not respect that, but you will have someone that you maybe struggle and you want to really be like, but he's not God. He's really not. Yeah. But I actually want to say today, I know this seems like I'm on a bit of a downer, but I think it actually is really great to have people that inspire you. Might be around a goal you want to achieve, a lifestyle. Joe and I have got someone that really inspires us, and he lives in Canada, but often I think, how would Pastor Barry handle that? You know, I think it's really good to have people to inspire you, but just pick why they inspire you, please. Think about that. That's really important. I want to talk to you about, this looks like a funny picture now, doesn't it? Doesn't really make much sense. I want to talk to you about someone that's really inspired me. And, you know, I've just been reading this leadership book because I'm a leader. I'm not really pastoral. I'm not superwoman fuzzy. I'm really a leader. So I like to read about leadership stuff because my job is to lead our team and help lead our churches. So I've been reading this book by Andy Stanley called Visioneering. Such a great book. Wow, such a great book. And he talked about the story of Nehemiah. So I decided to do a whole heap of work over the next couple of months about reading about Nehemiah. And I am so fascinated about his leadership ability. I don't know, is anyone really familiar with Nehemiah? Yeah, so good. So fascinated by his leadership ability. I don't know if you know the story. So I got you this picture up here because I thought this might be helpful because I need to see stuff. Anyone else? Ugh. Yeah, okay. So this is a picture of, you know, the Jerusalem area. And I just want to get back. So Nehemiah is a Jew, and he is in a really difficult situation, but working really hard. So he's obviously a very capable man. So he ends up serving the Persian Empire. So he has the job of being the cup bearer to the Persian king. So that may seem like a big deal to you, or if you're a footy fan, you may be thinking, you know, water bottle squirter, not important. But it was a really important job because the easiest way to knock off a king was to poison them. So his job was very responsible. So he wasn't Persian, but he was a different race, and he was given this job of really high authority. So he clearly was a really, you know, high-standing citizen. So he was serving the king, and he had heard from a fellow Jew that the walls of the city had broken down in Jerusalem. So I've got you the picture there so you can have a look. So all the walls had just broken down because there'd been war and there'd been, just been trash. So it just looked absolutely terrible. So I wanted to sort of paint this picture for you. So Jews worship in the temple, right? So they can't even get to the temple because the walls are just so crashed. I'll show you that in a second. So Nehemiah's really upset about this, but he has a job and he's serving the king. And the king says to him, why are you upset? What's going on? And he's just working his job, and he explains to the king, who's Persian, he says, look, where I worship, the city is in ruins, and, we can't worship there. It's not safe. We're not protected. So the king of Persia says, look, I want you to go and repair your city. I don't care how long it takes, go and repair your city. Repair the walls. So he allows him not only the time off, he gives him letters to get safe passage. Fantastic. So he heads off to go look at the city of Jerusalem, and he arrives and he scouts it for a couple of nights in incognito. He's got no idea what he's going to do. So these walls had been in ruins for 70 years. You know, when you see a ruin, they just get more ruined, don't they, when they sit there? So been in ruin for 70 years. So he hatches a plan. And he realises he's going to face a lot of opposition because, the Jews are hated and they don't want them to re-establish their place of worship and give them power back. So he decides that he's going to gather all these people, and he gathers a group of people and tells them his pitch about rebuilding this community. We're going to rebuild it. We're going to rebuild it. Gathers all these people, and they get ready to rebuild the community. And he's looking around, and he's got fabric makers, jewelers, merchants, priests, not a hard-working, physically capable crew, but he realises this is what he's got to work with. And the story of Nehemiah so inspires me because it's a story of a guy that rallied an unskilled group of people to work hard, to be safe, to manage their lives. They had to fight, watch for opposition. There were so many things going against him. And he encouraged, supported, led, did all of that work and kept the project going. Who's ever done a building project? My goodness. My goodness. Let me just show you what the walls look like. That's what the walls would have looked like, right? So the walls were just so broken, but he was so driven to fix these walls to get these people back to worship. Can I just explain how important this project was to them? If we didn't live in a suburb, if we actually, let's think we live in the city, okay, so, and we all shop on Burke Street, right? And fortunately, Burke Street has a church in it. But that would be handy. Church, shopping. So, and we had a walled city. So that's where we all went to church. That's where we all lived. So Nehemiah was very motivated to re-secure the city centre. We're lucky we have suburbs and churches, but this was a time where everything was in one place and very, very important to the Jews. So he navigated all this with all these people that had to give up their own time and effort and blood on their hands, and they were frightened, and they had to work with their families, and 50% of them had to stand guard while the other 50% built. All of this, all that way, the last picture, he led through all of that. 70 years. So a lot of those people had never seen it whole. And he fixed that through his leadership in 52 days. What a great story of someone to admire. Great story. So I'm just going to read a little bit here. So in chapter 7, Nehemiah has finished the wall. It looks fantastic. He's finished it. He is exhausted, absolutely exhausted, as you can imagine. So God doesn't let him rest, even though he's exhausted. God says to him, I want you to gather all the people. I want to see all the people, get them all back together, and we'll get a registry of them. So he gathers all the people together, and there's 42,000 people registered. That's a big group, isn't it? It's amazing. So he gathered them and he brought them back, and they all saw the temple, and some of the families were so excited about his ability, about what God's doing, about the leadership, that they gave money, enough money to finish it all off. Now people love to invest in good leadership, don't they? So in Nehemiah 8, he talks about the people being settled and gathered. It's such a great book. I just really have enjoyed studying it. He talks about all the people being settled and gathered, and he gets the priest Ezra, that's a fun name for a priest, I reckon, and he makes this wooden platform, because there's 42,000 people, right? That's quite the crowd. No microphones. We'd be struggling, wouldn't we? And he gets a wooden platform in the gated area that they've all built. They're all safe. They feel protected and they can worship. And he gets them all together, and Ezra reads the word of God from morning till lunchtime in the square. And it says, men, women, and others gathered and listened attentively. Fantastic. Love it. So this is what happened. This is Nehemiah 8. Ezra opened the book in the sight of all the people, for he was standing above all the people. Could you imagine that? The city rebuilt, the priest there on this wooden platform, and he stands in front of them with this beautiful big book, and he reads to them. And when he opened the book, all the people stood up. Could you imagine that moment? How proud they would have been. Then Ezra blessed the Lord, the great God, And all the people answered, Amen, Amen, while lifting up their hands. And then they bowed low. Imagine the sight. It would have been quite incredible, wouldn't it? And they worshipped the Lord with their faces to the ground. What a scene. They all gathered in that beautiful moment, and they would have remembered that, wouldn't they? How incredible. You see, the point of having admiration for this story is it's not about the great leadership that we end up admiring the person who had the good leadership, but the point is we need to admire the God who made the person and the leader and the goals that he had and how God brought the people back. Ezra's great, but he's just great, and Nehemiah's great, but they're not the champions in this story. This is God's story. And whether it's someone you admire from the past or it's someone that you're admiring right now, it's got to be God's story, not theirs. Because it's not all about God. It's all about God. It's not about Nehemiah or Ezra, is it? It's people to be admired, but they are not the champions of the story. God always is. Something really happened in that place, didn't it? It sounded like it would have been amazing. I just want to say, I'm an Aussie, right? I've, born and raised here. I want to say to you today, each one of you actually, it is not about you either. Now, I'm not saying that in a critical way, but I actually think as Aussies, we're very hard on ourselves. You might pray for someone, you might want to see growth in your area that you serve, you might want to, see the church grow or be in a better financial position or reach more people in your community. But if success isn't about you, failure actually isn't you either. Some things are out of your control. It's not about you. It's actually about God. So whether you do well or whether you suck at whatever you had a go at, you still give the glory to God. He still has the victory. You just did your best. That's all we can do. Honestly, please, can I just encourage you, let's not be so hard on ourselves. We're just having a go, loving Jesus, serving him. It's not about being cool enough, praying enough. It's just about God. So in all of this, I want to ask us, how distracted have our lives become? I work hard. I work really hard. COVID has made anyone else have to work harder because of COVID? Whew, yeah. And I think, we can just become so distracted. And God has been really challenging me about that. You might be distracted by your work, by your family, particularly if you've got a health issue or a crisis in your family. It's very distracting, isn't it? Very distracting. Or even, we've got people that are completely distracted by their hobbies. Can't be at church because, we've got to do this or fish or camp or whatever. And I think it's absolutely important to have activities. And if anything we've learnt during COVID, we don't have to be obsessed with being in the building all the time, but I think we can be obsessed with doing things we want to do, unfortunately. So, just want to read this, Nehemiah 8:16-17. So the people went out and brought back branches and made booths for themselves, each on his roof. So this is just after they've done the praying up and down, worshipping God. And in their courts and in the courts of the house of God and in the square at the water gate and in the square at the gate of Ephraim. Remember, there's 42,000 of them. So once they heard about booths, they went, right, we need to make booths. So the entire assembly of those who had returned from the captivity made booths and lived in them. The sons of Israel had indeed not done so from the days of Joshua, the son of Nun, to that day, and their joy was made great. So this is the scene where they are hearing the word of God and realise they want to respond to it. So what happens is they hear this word that the people in the past, their ancestors, had to make booths as a celebration of, it was a feast of something. Joe, what was the feast of? Tabernacle? So it was a feast of the tabernacle. So they heard about making booths. So they're like, right, well, we should do that too then, right? We should make booths. So they decide that they will also do that. So can you imagine this scene? So now they've left their beautiful homes that they've all just restored and they're all making booths. Why? But their joy was great. They made little booths. Why? See, I hate camping. Don't even talk to me about glamping. If it walks like a duck, it is still a duck. I hate camping. But I get this. As I read this story over and over again, I thought, what is with these booths? What is going on? What is with these booths? So what I believe is happening is God is saying, remove yourself from your stuff and come and sit with me. Sorry, am I moving too quick? Do you want me to go like this? Is that bad? Move yourself from the stuff and just sit with me and give thanks. Just be with me. Nothing else. Not the church, not the lights, not the music that encourages you. Just be with me. And all those people responded to that, and their joy was made great in that moment. See, I think the more stuff we have, I have a lovely house that we're renovating, the more stuff we have, the more distracted we can even be in our homes. So what we need to do somehow is find a way that it can just be with us and God. And they did it by staying in little tiny tents. Funny. And this is the prayer they prayed as they sat in these tents. I want you to let this sink into you. So this is just chapter 9. So we're not very far in Nehemiah. There's so much going on. This is what they said. You alone are the Lord. You have made the heavens, the heaven of heavens with all their host, the earth and all that is on it, the seas and all that is in them. You give life to everything, and the heavenly host worship you. When they were in that moment, they saw the enormity of God and how big and powerful and mighty He is, because they just had time with Him. They stopped being distracted. They felt safe, they felt comfortable, they were not distracted at all. It's what we need. COVID has been very distracting. It really has, hasn't it? It's caused a level of worry and anxiety we didn't even know we could have, that something airborne could actually knock us out, or our elderly out, or your vulnerable family members out. It's been distracting. But God doesn't want distractions. He wants us to worship Him. Does God want to be famous? I think this is a great question. I think so. I'm going to say yes. But He does it in a different way. He uses us to make Him famous. In the end, in Revelation, He's going to make Himself very famous. But for now, He uses His people. Nehemiah 9 says, you made a name for yourself, which remains to this day. His name is famous. He is famous. We live in a country that has forgotten that. Remember we talked earlier about His invisible attributes being forgotten? Doesn't mean they're not there. But it is us that makes Him famous, no one else. No other source, I should say. just want to talk to you just quickly about John the Baptist, because I think he's the best example of how to make God famous. He talked about very early about, he came and he sought God and he was offering the light, showing the way, opening, he was just saying, I am not the answer, I'm not the saviour, but I know the one that's coming. And his whole ministry and purpose, although he seemed quite weird, his whole ministry and purpose was to make Jesus famous. I mean, we know the story of John the Baptist. He did make Jesus famous. Everything he did, all his discipleship, all his crying out to people was, repent, be baptised, there is one coming. And I love this verse in John 3:3. It says, he must increase, but I must decrease. We may live in a time that we're looking for churches that are some kind of superpowers, but the more superpower the pastor is, the less we have Christ in the front and centre. I almost feel like there's this culture of churches that's just about personality. It's actually not about getting out the way so Christ is revealed. Our job is to point people to Christ, not to the person standing up the front. They actually don't matter in the end. I mean, they're there to be a good example, but that's it. John 3:31 says, he who comes from above is above all. He who is of the earth belongs to the earth and speaks in earthly ways. He who comes from heaven is above all. We point to that and that only. That's our job as people that follow Christ. We don't need to be weird, but we do need to stay focused on our purpose. Yeah, I'm not wearing camel stuff and eating crickets, but we do need to be reminded. I mean, that might be a great person for you to look up. How did John do things? He pointed to Christ. What beautiful scriptures. He must increase and I must decrease. That's what it's about. It doesn't matter how flash I am, what car I drive. That stuff doesn't matter. It doesn't grow your church. We're not growing churches on personality. So, my question for us today, what I want us to really grasp is, how will we remember from today to make God famous? How are we going to do that? How will we live a life of decreasing ourselves and increasing Christ? Because it's easy to do it when we're all in a group and we gather together. That's great. How will we remember to make God famous? God already made a way for that. It's called communion, right? It's a chance that we can have a little tiny booth moment with God. We can gather together. And I think you've got communion with you. Matt might come and do a little bit of keys for me in a second. That would be good. See, because communion is the opportunity for you. Remember the scripture before about the invisible God? Communion is the chance to be thankful to God and remember God. It's very important that we are thankful in remembering. And communion is such a beautiful way of us coming back to alignment and remembering what Christ has done for us. Because you could imagine those people in their beautiful new building with, walls all built and just getting on with their life and completely forgetting what God has done for them because they could get distracted again. But we need to not lose sight. Whether we're doing a building program or whether we've got a great building or a rubbish building, we need to not be distracted. Luke 9:23-25. If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake, he is the one who will save it. For who is a man profited if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? Can I just encourage you today, put your eyes on Jesus every day. every day. Luke 23 talks about when they came to the place called the Skull, there they crucified him. That's us. He died for our sins, for what we got wrong. It's not they out there, it's they. We're the they, aren't we? So I want to allow you just a couple of minutes to take some time to think about, and I really feel that God will speak to you. What do you need to do different in your thought life to make him more famous? What is it that needs to be a change? What are you maybe looking up to, aspiring to? What do you need to let go of to make God have the position in your heart that he needs and he deserves so much? Let's just spend a few minutes in prayer. I want you to have a moment with God and just reflect on that. How will you make him more famous in your heart? As we sit together, I want you to just remember the fear and the loneliness and the uncertainty you had in your life before you asked Jesus into your heart. And if you don't already know him, ask him to come into your heart now. Or maybe you need to renew that commitment to him. He's there, he's waiting. Lord, we thank you for your death and resurrection. We thank you for dying in our place. We thank you for making a way for us to know you and love you. Lord Jesus, we take communion now in your honour and in your presence, Lord. Amen. So eat and drink when you're ready. I just want to finish by telling you a little story about the start of my year. It was 2 days after I came back from holidays, and I got the biggest, it was January 13th, I believe, I got the biggest kick up the backside from God that I'd had. I don't even remember having that real moment of God looking me in the face and saying, "What are you doing?" And that was it. I was doing everything. I was exhausted, and I've just come back from holidays. I think what had happened was I'd just been working so hard and carrying so many different plates and just feeling so worn out. And God just said to me, it was like, you know, when your grandma grabs your cheeks and she's just like, gotcha. He just got me and he said, I want you to be with me. But I was doing so much. I was helping heaps of people and the church was going fine and there was lots of good things, but I had not made that time to just be with God enough. I had not. And I repented of that. I cried a lot. My staff are looking at me like, we were on retreat and my staff are looking at me like, what's wrong with her? But, you know, I didn't know what to do, and I went away and I prayed about it and I realised I needed to create my own booth experience with God a lot. And I want to encourage you guys to do that today. Think about that beautiful story about them pulling themselves away and creating a little space. And so what I did was I got my phone out and I wrote in my calendar on reoccurring the hours that were not negotiable God hours. So you think I would have worked that out, but I didn't. So not negotiable hours. So I start work late now, and you might need to work out your own scenario. But I really felt like I do prayer and Bible reading, but I needed that time where I was just sitting with God and just being in his sweet presence and just being there. I was doing too much. And I suspect everyone in this room can relate in some way, doing too much. So now what I do is I have my hours blocked out and I get dressed, get ready for work, have breakfast, coffee, whatever, and I sit in a room. We're renovating, so I have the only room in my house that's completely renovated. I sit in there because everywhere else I can see something that needs to be done. And I sit and I pray and I listen to God. I don't really say a lot at the moment. This is a new thing of that real commitment and devotional time to God, because if he's not famous in here for me, everything else doesn't matter. It really doesn't. So if I'm not prioritizing that beautiful time where I'm just refreshing and recovering, then I'm just an empty shell. And so are you. So what I would like us to do as we finish, if you don't mind standing, I think standing is helpful. I'm trying not to look at all this paper. Anyone else struggling with that? No, I'm kidding. What I would like you to do is just take a couple of minutes, maybe have a think about your last week and think, okay, what did that look like? What changes do I need to make God more famous in here? Don't worry about out there for now. Worry about in here. So you've got paper. You might think of something really practical. It might be, pray 3 times a week, half hour, whatever. You do your own thing. But I have set days that I block out an hour chunk and I sit and I pray and I'm on my own and I have my little booth moment with God. Not studying, not learning, just being with God. And I sense that you guys need that too. I feel like everyone's working really hard. So can I just ask you just to take a couple of minutes to think about and maybe commit on paper what it is you need to do differently. Maybe it's what you need to give up. Maybe you're doing too much. Maybe, please don't quit everything in the church because then Anna and Matt will kill me. But, there might be something that you just need to carve out a best time with God, a booth moment where you can sit and celebrate with him and he can celebrate you. So just take a moment to do that.